Hey, Palak, thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to really bring some experts onto my channel and talk about how to not only get your foot in the door on a cybersecurity career, but how to progress through the steps of becoming an expert through the pathway of a cybersecurity the longevity of it, right? 5, 10, 15 years in industry and all the growth that we have seen over the past few months and quarters. So
Yes.
I want to say thank you first and foremost for coming on the channel. And you are a senior partner of a recruiting firm that specializes specifically in cybersecurity out of the Atlanta area. Tell me a little bit more about you and how you founded New Search Horizons.
Great. Thank you so much, Antoinette. It's awesome to be here. And I really love the opportunity to talk about recruiting and especially helping candidates evolve in their career paths. So, my long story short is I'm a career headhunter and recruiter for about 15 years. And actually, 13 of those years were on the corporate side, mostly with large enterprise consulting firms. So I've done really high volume tech recruiting on the inside, on the internal side, and last couple of years, I decided to challenge myself in a totally different direction and way by going independent. So it's been a crazy ride. These 2 years I've been independent. It's like sometimes I tell a lot of people it's like 20 years jammed into two between the great rise of 2019 and the great COVID of 2020. So it's been exciting to say the very least.
Absolutely. A wild ride for sure, especially on the educational side. We've been seeing, as schools are opening and closing and opening and closing, we have
Yeah,
more students kind of coming into online programs on the adult side as well, really trying
absolutely.
to make sure that they're safe and healthy, but still able to progress through the amusement park adventure that has become the IT sector. And there's been so many
Yes.
amazing opportunities, definitely a lot of slowing in other industries, but
Hmm.
IT is booming and the jobs are just plentiful, which
Absolutely.
is just been a blessing. I talked to
Hmm.
you a little bit before our call, and you said you've been super, super busy recruiting for
I have.
positions. So just kind
Mhm.
of proof positive that cybersecurity is a great pathway for getting a career, a stable career that's going to be long lasting.
Totally, it is, and uh, it's there are new dimensions now that have been introduced because of this massive exodus from in office and and entry into work from home. Like huge swaths of employee populations are now working from home, full time. So that has introduced a whole new landscape of challenges for cybersecurity leaders across these organizations. So they can't hire security professionals quick enough.
Absolutely. So challenges in IT equals jobs for us. That's
Absolutely.
the great thing.
Yes.
So let's jump into it in regards to a recruiter's perspective, because I know as an instructor, we're always saying, you need to have this in place and you have to have these certs and your resume should look this way.
Mm-hmm.
But really,
Mm-hmm.
what counts is the person who is connecting the dots to getting them into that job. So I love having a recruiter's perspective on some of those foundational items, the job application, the resume, the
Mm-hmm.
interview. What can
Totally.
you say makes somebody stand out in regards to a resume or application?
That's a very good and very loaded question
That's fair.
because there's an infinite number of things you can do, and the art is understanding. There's has to be a certain amount of reflection and introspection on who you are, what you're about, and how you want to stand out. Because there's just so many directions you can go. Like you and I, we're doing a video right now, and that that's one approach you can take. So the first thing is creating content, creating a lot of interesting, relevant content to demonstrate all the other aspects of your personality, your character, how you solve problems, how you thrill your employers, all those and all the different dimensions of your subject matter expertise and your thought leadership. So that's one big arena is creating content and leveraging these social media platforms, especially LinkedIn, to demonstrate your thought leadership and expert in areas of expertise. And that in and of itself, you can go 1,000 directions.
Yeah, that's
Like I was
huge.
just saying, videos, blog posting, podcasting. There's just so much you can do. But even if you don't go the very traditional social media approaches, you could do things like white papers and essays and things of that nature. There are a lot of things you can do to generate content and share it with your target audiences. Beyond that, let's say you're not very big on creating content and it's just a huge effort, or whatever your reasons are. There are a lot of little things you can do that actually can get the attention of hiring leaders and internal recruiters. You can, and it's these little things tend to get unnoticed, and I don't see candidates doing them enough. To be honest with you, is commenting. All right, that's a very big. I think that there's something very significant there. Go to identify your target market, those target hiring leaders, those target employers, and see what they're posting, right? See what they're posting and comment on their posts. And don't just give thumbs ups, right? Make meaningful comments. Say something that gets their attention, right? And maybe do it before you send a connection request. All right. So just don't, again, you don't want to be a stalker commenting every single post they've ever made, but be thoughtful, space it out a little bit, and then make a connection request with that target hiring leader. The chances are much higher they're going to recognize you. And even in that connection request, do it in a more customized and thoughtful way. Hey, Antoinette, I saw that you were making some really interesting posts over the last couple of weeks. I really appreciated the value you're bringing. I just thought it'd be nice to connect as well.
I love
So,
that. And LinkedIn is critical. Just to plug really quick, so your
yes.
LinkedIn profile URL is in the description of this video. So for anybody watching who wants to connect, make that happen. We've also dropped the LinkedIn company page for IMIT. But I know whether you're creating content or not, everybody thinks creating content is such a huge undertaking. It doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily have to be a feature film. It can be a quick who am I type of video showing off who you are professionally and a little bit of personal side so they can see your personality. It can be
Yes.
a blog post or an article. And just like you said, just going through and looking at other people's content and letting them know that it's adding value. And it is more than the thumbs up, right? Being social on social media is how you
Yes.
get noticed and how you create that really strong network.
Yes. And the real power in content creation is not the content itself, to be honest with you. Yes, that's quite powerful, but it's actually something that has an edge above that, I would say, is consistency, is posting and sharing consistently. So those who are in it for the long haul, you actually have to have that mindset that I'm in it for the long haul. You'll win out in terms of building your brand, getting the attention of those target recruiters and hiring leaders, and being recognized as a thought leader in your domain, however big or small it may be. So creating the content, but then sharing it consistently and producing it consistently is going to be just as critical.
Absolutely. And that really takes us beyond the application or just getting those
Mhm.
foundational documents. That's something that you can do not only as a job seeker, but it sounds like as a professional as well. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. You should not. Um, let me rephrase that. You should always be, engaged on LinkedIn to whatever degree you can, right? Even there's, us recruiters, we have this saying, that everyone's a candidate. Even if you've been in a role for 10 or 50, or in a company for 10, 15 years, everyone at some point is a potential candidate. So you have to have that mindset that at any point anything can happen. We're in a world where you can't anticipate if you're going to have a job tomorrow or not, and that can be a terrifying and scary thing. Use that fear in a very positive way. Leverage that fear to realize that, hey, I gotta build my brand, and I gotta maintain that brand, because at any point the tides can change, and if they do, I should be ready for that inevitability. That you shouldn't be in any kind of freak out mode on a permanent basis. I'm not trying to say that you should be paranoid, but definitely think ahead and recognize that we're in a world where something like a COVID can happen, and all of a sudden, through no fault of your own, you've been riffed or let go, and you don't want to be playing catch up in that moment when time is of the essence. You want to be already ahead of the curve, and leveraging those very positive networks you've been cultivating for months and months before that moment ever happened.
I love that. That's very true. So even if you're not necessarily seeking a brand new position right now, making sure that your network is really strong. So in the case that you choose to move or life chooses to move you, you're prepared to get your foot in the door on whatever may be next. And
Yeah.
there have been a lot of changes. Tech has grown, but certain
Mhm.
sections of tech have shrunk because
Yeah.
we are in a very different landscape. So for those of us who were traveling full time, that was me, had a lot of
Yep.
contracts come to an end. On-site help desk and desktop support engineers, a lot of times because people aren't coming into work, that means that they don't need their devices maintained or configured, and you're not necessarily setting up workstations. So a lot of jobs like that have been
Mhm.
eliminated. But when we're really heavy on the network and cloud and cybersecurity side, as far as the dependency on keeping uptime and availability. So some jobs not necessarily there, but other sectors growing like wildfire.
Yes. So do your research. It's very important for candidates to know what's growing, what's hot, what's not. And that can also fluctuate depending on location. So geography can play a factor into that as well. So, be on top of what's going on in the industry. Don't keep your head down all the time, and pop it up. Make sure you understand what's moving and shaking, and anticipate as best you can.
So, speaking of geography, are you finding that more jobs are being offered remotely, or are companies still looking to have that geographic tie to a candidate?
That's a really great question. Companies are very much remote friendly these days. They do tend to have some preferences on occasion for candidates in certain geographies. So even though they may be working from home, it would be great to be in this geographies, because we may want to have a team meeting 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year, right? So let's make that a little easier. Let's minimize travel costs and to that effect. So they tend to have that. They may have that preference to be in a certain geography, but just as equally, there are many firms that are now completely wide open. We're seeing that with big tech on the West Coast. So many of these large tech players like Facebook, Netflix, etc., have now just opened it wide up, and you're finding, for better for worse, an exodus from the valley into Boise, Idaho, and Atlanta, Georgia, and Louisville, Kentucky, and all these lower cost locations. So it's a fascinating phenomenon we're witnessing. So yeah, there is an increasing flexibility. However, I would state that for many, my prediction is that for many firms and many industries and sectors, it's a temporary phenomenon. I think many firms will go back to a more in-office situation once COVID is a bit behind us. I can see that transition happening again. So it's just a matter of who's made that permanent commitment to work from home versus of course, I think it's been stretched now. So even if firms transition back to a in-office scenario, they're going to offer many more work from home and flexible work arrangement possibilities for their employee population.
Absolutely. Yeah, some of these things are going to be permanent changes, if
Yes.
not at least very, very long term, where
Hmm.
office culture includes that home office and then having some travel involved to just bring everybody together for team events
Yes.
or whatever is necessary in person. But yeah, a lot of flexibility that is getting put into that more permanent or long term side from this.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very cool. So, if anybody here has any questions, always feel free to leave them in the comments. This right now is a live chat, but even after it's live, it'll be available, and we will be in our chat sessions answering questions throughout. So don't hesitate to pop in and ask questions about your career journey. So, Palak, tell me about. I'm gonna pivot and hang out in the training section because that's where my brain
Hmm.
lives. In
Sure.
regards to certifications, training opportunities, expected knowledge that people are coming into the job market with, what are some of the top certifications you're seeing on the more entry or mid career side versus that more senior professional side?
Absolutely. So I would say for the entry level folks, the expectation of certifications may not be as intense or heavy as it would for those who are quite seasoned, 5 to 7 years plus. For the entry level folks, it's great if you can get like a CompTIA Security Plus or even a certified ethical hacker certification, if that's the kind of trajectory you want to go into when it comes to cybersecurity. Some of the other certifications may be more challenging and you may need some more experience under your belt. Some of them may also have experience requirements. So keep that in mind. When it comes to the mid-career and senior level professionals, it's almost a given that you should have a CISSP. That's kind of the baseline in cybersecurity for many cybersecurity hiring leaders. So it's getting to that point where it may be a little weird if you're 10, 15 years into cybersecurity and you don't have it. The question is, why don't you have it? So I'm seeing that kind of conversation popping up more often. Not that that's a rule across the board, but I think that there's a trend there. But some of the other top certifications are also great and valuable, and they add to your credibility as a cybersecurity professional. So those can include like the CISM, Certified Information Security Manager, the CISA for auditors. If you're really big on NIST, they have a certification. If you're big on cloud, then you got the CCSP. So there are a lot of directions you can go depending on your preference and career track. If you're going to be a generalist, you may want to get a suite of these. If you want to be specialized, you may be good enough with one or two. So there's a lot you can do. And this is just the beginning. There's so many other certifications you can tack on to really, bolster your expertise.
Absolutely. There are hundreds of certifications out there, but there are some core expectations per kind of which path you're on. And so, just to kind of take that surprised or oh my goodness look off a couple of y'all's faces, when he and I are talking about entry level, we are specifically talking about that cybersecurity side. So, if you're looking at project management, help desk cloud, Security Plus might not necessarily be entry level to you as a student. It's definitely not one of the first certifications that we recommend going after for people that don't necessarily have a background in technology. But for somebody who has spent some time on help desk or has spent time as a system or network administrator and they're moving into cybersecurity, the CompTIA Security Plus and the CEH are some of those first steps of taking the official step into the cybersecurity pathway and really locking in a solid career. So, for those of you who are like looking at IT fundamentals and A plus, maybe some of the foundational AWS or Azure certifications, and you're like, oh, Security Plus is an entry level. It's it is the first of many steps on the certification pathway on the cybersecurity specific course that
Yes,
you'll take. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that a little bit.
good one.
Awesome. So I want to kind of look at what are some top tips that you can share with job seekers that'll get them noticed beyond just submitting an application or sharing their resume with a recruiter? Are there certain things, and we touched on this a little bit before, but what are some tips that you say that, really has somebody stand out for you and that makes you make that phone call?
Absolutely. So when you're, and I think we were chatting a little bit about this before the call as well. When you're a job seeker in the market, you want to build this image with hiring managers and hiring leaders as a problem solver, right? Not just a candidate, but I have a problem, and here's a person who can solve that problem. That's how managers think all day long. They're dealing with all types of, all varieties of complicated problems, and they're trying to hire someone who can take a bunch of those problems off of their plate, right? So that mindset is so important. With that in mind, I would say there are three core steps, and I'll throw in a fourth bonus as well. The first, I would say, is mind your own experiences, right? You have solved all variety of problems. You have not just performed tasks. These tasks may have bubbled up to lead to something that actually solves significant problems for the business. So don't unnecessarily minimize the work you may have done in the past. It may have actually had a huge impact on your organization. So you want to reflect on that and make sure that you're representing yourself as a problem solver. This speaks to, I'm gonna make a little bit of a tangent here, but it's an important one. Resumes are not really meant to be historical documents. And I have to say about 95% of resumes, of the thousands of resumes I've seen over the years, are treated more like a historical document, just a litany of all the things you've done. They're really meant to be branding documents. They're meant to position you for the job opportunities you have. That means, yes, you have to reframe those bullets and reframe those concepts that or those litany of things that you've listed there, those tasks and whatnot, reframe them as how you solve the core problems of your target market, being the hiring leader in that particular industry or organization, right? So it's a mindset shift that's very difficult for many candidates, from the most junior analysts to the most senior C-level folks. I've seen it, seen this challenge across the board. And it's not easy, right? We've been trained in a certain way. We haven't been trained to be marketers, right? But nonetheless, there are a lot of tools available and a lot of techniques available out on the web, and a lot of coaches available to help you reframe yourself. So that's a very important thing. And once you do that, it'll become easier to mine those experiences you had and understand how you've solved all varieties of problems in your career path. That's number one. Number two is study your target employer or hiring leader and study their industry. Know what those problems are, right? Because you may have solved all variety of problems, but they may not be interesting to that hiring manager to whom that job opportunity you just applied for, and that hiring manager you're about to interview. So make sure that you're presenting the right kind of problems you've solved to that hiring leader, and that what that entails is you have to understand their world. You have to empathize a bit about the things they go through. That means you have to read, you have to go online, you have to spend some time researching that domain, that industry, read the white papers, read the news, set up Google alerts for that employer and understand what's happening in the news cycles with respect to that employer. Set up LinkedIn alerts or whatever it may be to understand what's going on with that industry and that organization. Follow certain hiring leaders in that sector who routinely post on LinkedIn, and what are they posting about? What are they talking about? There are a lot of ways you can get the inside track on an employer and an industry. So that's number two. And I would say number three, and we've been kind of speaking to this throughout, is make a very impactful presentation, right? You've done all this great work. Now it how it's packaged does matter. So you could do a lot of things like what we're doing, arrange a webinar, right? Or online discussion and record it and share the either the whole recording, or you can have you hire someone on Fiverr for a few bucks and splice it into multiple pieces of content that you can share through your network. So there are a lot of things a lot of creative things you can do with that. You can have it transcribed and create blog posts. So there's a lot of ways you can create that useful content and presentation. Get invited to podcasts and discussions like this, again. So there's and the other one actually that could be impactful specifically in the application process. Now that we're talking about that is creating slide decks, right? Create a pitch deck on a like a case study almost of a core problem you solved and all the critical steps you took to solve it, and attach that along with your resume when you're submitting your application, or especially if you've been invited to an interview. It really impresses many hiring leaders. They're saying, oh, this person's anticipating the problems they think I'm going to be having and the problem I'm really looking to solve in this role. And they've already kind of prepped me for where their mind is at and where their expertise is at. So those things can really make a mark. And finally, the bonus number 4 is something we already talked about. Be consistent, right? So put it out there on a regular basis. I am the problem solver in this space. People come to me when they're stuck in this way or that way. So, when you are consistently out there, people will remember you that much more easily. It's a tried and true marketing tactic. You have to create so many impressions before you become memorable. So there are really no excuses for us. We really have so much at our disposal now. We don't have to be some big marketing agency to really be out there anymore. We have LinkedIn and Facebook and so many platforms to demonstrate our thought leadership and expertise.
Absolutely. And I can speak to those pieces that you just shared are consistent across anything that somebody is doing. Be consistent with your studying so you can get certified. Be consistent with our videos so that you can still find us and land on our content. Making sure that you are presenting yourself as the answer or the solution to a problem, because that's why there is an open job. That's why there is an industry that is being created and being forged forward, because there are problems. And it's our job as candidates, as applicants, and as employees, even as entrepreneurs, to go solve those problems. So really step into the shoes of who is going to be hiring you and look at the issue, look at the opportunity from their perspective, so that you can really think about how you want to market yourself to being the resolution to the challenge that they have on their table.
Well said.
Awesome. Well, Palak, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this. Some of these things are very simple, but they are just action items. And I think we know some of these things, but putting them into action is the challenge. So for anybody who is out there, whether you're job seeking right now, whether you might be in the near future, or you're just making sure that you're prepared for whatever the craziness may bring in the next couple of weeks, months, or years, make sure that you're marketing yourself, make sure that you're staying connected, make sure that you're networking both on the computer and the human side, very important there. And I love the fact that you shared about the resume. We always are putting what we have accomplished, but not necessarily what we are presently working on and what we can bring in the future. So that can be a challenge. I see resumes go through a lot of different trends. We talked about this a while back, but do you remember the term of the type of resume to kind of change up that chronological scheme that you had shared with me?
The functional resume.
Perfect. So if you Google functional resume, some amazing search results, very, very different than kind of what I was taught in high school and college and how to put a resume together. Really interesting. I loved the format of it, and it really does create more of a problem solving, who am I, what kind of skills am I bringing to the table, versus here's what I did 5 years ago, here's what I did 2 years ago, here's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. please help me escape my current situation. Because that's really what is being read through the timeline of a resume.
Okay.
So it's a very different format. It's really creative and it brings the opportunity for a job candidate or applicant to bring some attention to where their strengths are, no matter how long ago, because something, especially a soft skill, leadership, presentation abilities, critical thinking, you've probably been doing that for a lot longer than your current year or last 2 years in your position. So it lets you
Mm.
highlight that in a really cool way.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Palak, thank you for the time. Is there any last words that you can share with our audience today?
Stay inspired. There's a lot of there are so many opportunities out there in the marketplace. Be persistent, stay inspired, and do the good work. I think candidates tend to undersell themselves, to be honest with you, and I see that a lot. And they offer a lot more than they think they do. So be honest about your contributions and find and leverage all these creative ways of sharing those contributions with the world.
I love it. Well, have a great day and weekend, and I'm sure we'll see you here soon because you have all kinds of content and good tips for us. So I will be in your inbox searching for those.